Hello, friends, and welcome back. Today, I want to share 5 ways that I have been simplifying my life lately in the hopes that they will inspire you to do the same. There isn't a single person I know who doesn't have too much on their plates. At this point, I think it's just the name of the game. We have too many options, too many tabs open, too many things we need to take care of, too much to keep up with, and generally too much going on. And anything that helps us reduce complexity, automate, and simplify what we need to do will bring a great sense of relief. So let's dive into what has made a difference for me lately. Number one, I set up Amazon subscription. Maybe this is an obvious one for you, but I resisted this for the longest time. I don't know why, but I just didn't want to give Amazon that much power over my life. Maybe I was just worried that they would just keep sending stuff to my house and I would end up with piles of things I had to organize and store. Maybe I was worried that a subscription was too much of a commitment. What if I subscribed, but then I found the product somewhere else or a better, cheaper version of it? What would I do then? I'd end up with 2 copies of it. It doesn't matter. I had this whole drama around why I didn't want to do an Amazon subscription. But here's the thing, remembering all the things I need to buy around the house takes up a lot of my mental bandwidth. It may not seem like much, but it takes up a lot of energy to keep track of the toilet paper and make sure you have enough dishwasher detergent and make sure you have enough soap and toothpaste and all the things that you need for your household to be functional. And as a wife, mother, and dog mom, I found myself keeping track of a lot of things for a lot of people in my house. I finally sat down and looked at our Amazon purchases for the last several months. I could easily see patterns for how often we needed certain things. And so I bit the bullet and I set up some subscriptions. And it's amazing how much bandwidth this has freed up for me mentally. And the best part is that I can cancel the subscriptions or adjust the delivery days anytime I want to. So if we ended up with too much of something and I needed to skip the next delivery, I can do that. In retrospect, I don't know why I hesitated for so long. I should have just done it a long time ago. And I have to clarify that Amazon is clearly not paying me for this. I'm a small-time YouTuber. They're not checking for me. This is just my personal experience as an Amazon Prime subscriber. The second thing I've done is embrace a uniform. We've all heard about names like Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg and President Obama all having a uniform. And the big idea here is that this would simplify or eliminate some of the decisions they have to make so that they could focus on bigger, more important things. And my thought about this was always, oh well, must be nice. I always thought this was a quirk and not really a thing that was practical for everyday people. I just could not imagine myself showing up to the office every day wearing exactly the same thing and not having the inclination to just go around and let everybody know that I am in fact changing my clothes daily and that I just happen to have 10 pieces of the same garment. But once again, I'm learning that I was in my head too much about something that really isn't that deep. No one is really worried about what you're wearing every day. If, like me, you have been intrigued at the idea of a uniform or a capsule wardrobe and you just haven't been able to make it work for you, I wanted to point out that there are a few different ways that you can go about it. You don't have to wear the same thing absolutely every day. Kendra Adachi of The Lazy Genius recommends having a uniform for Mondays. Mondays tend to be really stressful days for a lot of people, so having a uniform for that particular day of the week just simplifies what would otherwise be a stressful day. Maybe your crazy day is not Monday, maybe it's Thursday. Could you have a uniform for Thursday? Another option is to have a uniform for the first day after you come back from a trip. If you come back from vacation and usually find yourself scrambling the first day back at work, maybe you can simplify that day by deciding in advance what your uniform will be. The way I now see it, having a uniform is not about restricting your creativity, it's about giving you freedom to worry about other things. So pick a uniform for your most stressful days. My version of creating a uniform was even different than that. What I did was set a default color for myself. A couple of years ago, I had a color analysis done and I found out that I'm a winter. So cool colors and deeper tones tend to work well for me. On a side note, I'm not sure why I thought that because I was brown that I would have a warmer undertone, but it turns out it's cool. And that's really good to know. When I get stuck in the style rut, I end up wearing the same things over and over again, or I default to wearing a lot of black. And while black is a great color that is within my color palette, I was getting a little bit bored of always wearing black as a default. So I decided to set my default color to navy. I like the way navy looks on me. I find that it's a rich, deep, and classy color that I really enjoy wearing. So I decided why not make that my default instead of black. So if you watch a lot of my videos, you'll notice that navy shows up time and time again, but it doesn't mean that it's the only color I wear. I like a deep dark forest green. Sometimes I pair my navy with a purple or a pink. I still have flexibility to do what I want, but for the days where I just need to get up and go, it's nice to have a default color to use that feels nice, that was pre-decided, and that I enjoy wearing. It makes my choices a lot simpler on those days. Another decision I made around clothes is to stop trying to make patterns work for me. I like patterns on other people, but for some reason, I don't love them when I wear them. The one thing I enjoy outside of a solid color is polka dots. So you'll notice that I wear a lot of navy and a lot of polka dots. We don't have to share the same aesthetic or taste in clothing, but if you haven't given a uniform a try, I would encourage you to think about the different ways that this can be set up. You can choose a color, you can choose a default for particular days of the week, you can plan a uniform for every day. There are many different ways that you could try to make this work for you, especially if you end up spending a lot of time every day trying to decide what to wear. The third thing I did is simplify my note taking. So I like to take a lot of notes and I like handwriting. A lot of people retain things better when they write them down. You also connect with your brain a little bit deeper when you write longhand. And because I like to write longhand, I ended up with piles of notes everywhere. On post-its, on the back of envelopes, on the back of bank statements, on different notepads, just everywhere. I also work from home some days and go to the office other days, so I had piles at home, I had piles at the office, I had piles for my personal reading notes, and I have piles related to work, so just piles of paper everywhere. With that comes a lot of visual clutter, and it can be overwhelming to process through all your paperwork. And then you go to the office, but you find that your notes were left at home, and then you just have this chaos around all of this note taking. So the big change that happened this year is that I clarified when handwriting was appropriate and when it was not. If I'm writing something down because I want to remember to address it later, then it most likely can be digital. The best way to go is to make this an electronic note. If it's something that is time specific, then I'll put it directly into my calendar. If it's not time sensitive, I will put it into Google Keep or Microsoft To Do or OneNote, depending on whether it's a work note or a personal note. Again, no one is paying me to recommend any of this. These are just the tools I use. There are many other options out there. The whole point is to make these kinds of notes digital so I can access them from my phone, from my computer at home, or from my computer at the office without having to carry a bunch of stuff with me. So find the apps or tools that work for you. Now I reserve my handwriting for when I am journaling or brain dumping or processing some kind of thought or brainstorming some ideas or putting some things together that, I need to kind of see on paper to internalize. I use handwriting when it helps me work through things. And I do all of this type of free writing in one notebook. Usually when I do some free writing to process through some stuff, I'm sitting at a desk or I'm sitting somewhere where I have access to my notebook. If I'm out and about without my notebook and inspiration hits, maybe I'm on a walk and I have an idea I'd like to work through a little bit, I will use dictation as a proxy for handwriting. You can pretty much dictate into any app nowadays, so just open one of your notes apps and then dictate your thoughts. I find that talking through my thoughts, even though I'm just dictating to myself, can have a similar effect to free writing about those thoughts. And speaking of dictation, I try to incorporate it into everything that I do. So if, let's say at work, you have to write a pretty important email and you're not sure where to start, consider dictating what your ideas are directly into like an email template. It'll give you a starting point and then you can edit it and make it sound better. I use dictation all the time to start brand new Word documents or to write out emails to people. And the last thing I want to mention about note-taking is the use of optical character recognition. I know that OneNote and Evernote have this feature, but I'm sure other platforms do as well. This is the feature where you can convert image into text. I use this a lot at work. When I'm watching a webinar or I'm attending a meeting where someone is presenting information, I'll take a screenshot of their slide and then I'll save that for reference later. When I'm tidying up my notes, I'll convert all of those pictures into text so I have notes that I can use in the future. I used to try to keep up with the presenter and take handwritten notes as they were sharing information, but invariably they would switch slides or change screens. If the presenter is not able to share their slides with you, then you can take screenshots and you can create your own notes. I've known that this feature existed for a while, but I've only recently made it a part of my regular workflow. The fourth thing I've done is create flexible habits. And this is all about giving myself more options around the habits I would like to maintain. If you are an all or nothing kind of person, like I am, this will be very helpful to you. I have mostly implemented this around my movement habits, so my daily walks and my exercise 3 times a week. Taking daily walks with my dog is one of my all-time favorite self-care activities. It gets me outside, it gets me moving, and it helps me clear my head. And my dog really loves it too. My preferred option is to walk for 45 minutes to an hour every day. And most days that works well. Either I do it before I start work, or I do it on my lunch break, or I do it right after work, but it usually fits really nicely into my schedule. But occasionally, I'll have a day or a series of days where 45 minutes is just not feasible. Maybe work gets really busy or something else happens or the weather's really bad. I mean, we had a tornado not too long ago. So sometimes 45 minutes is just not realistic. Well, it used to be that if I looked at the clock and I realized that I only had 20 minutes or so, I wouldn't even bother going on a walk. I just felt like it wasn't enough time for me to really enjoy my walk the way I wanted to, so why even bother? I would wait until I would find the perfect 45-minute spot to go on my preferred walk. But that perfect time window would never come. So this year, I have finally embraced that a shorter walk is better than no walk. Duh, right? So what I've done is identified a few different routes that I can take depending on how much time I have that particular day. I know that if I make a certain loop around my neighborhood, it takes about 20 minutes. I know that another path will take me about 30 minutes, and then there's a trail that I can go on if I have 45 minutes to an hour. Interestingly enough, having this variety of options makes walking even more fun because it feels like we're going on a different adventure every day. I have a similar set of options for when I go to the gym. I have a 15-minute workout routine, I have a 30-minute one, and I have a full hour one. So depending on how I feel on a particular day or how much time I have, I can still show up and do something. Having these options predefined means that I don't have to figure things out on the spot, because that usually leads me to overthink things, procrastinate, or talk myself out of doing things. If you only have 15 to 20 minutes to do something, you don't want to waste all that time going back and forth with yourself. So where can you create flexible routines that work for you? Another thing I've been doing this year is deciding what not to do. Decision fatigue can weigh us down. A great way to simplify decision making is to decide in advance what you will not be doing. Eliminating some options is a great way to reduce complexity. So if there are particular types of event you always get invited to, or particular things you get asked to do that you always regret saying yes to, decide now that you will not be doing those things. Decide once so you don't have to make a decision every time you are asked. Give yourself that clarity. Sometimes you just have to decide, this is going to be a nope for me. Thanks, but no thanks. Bonus points if you craft your answer in advance. You can even rehearse how to say no and what you will say when somebody brings it up. If you wait until you're in the hot seat to decide, you can be swayed to say yes, even though you don't really mean it. Then you'll spend a lot of time and energy dreading what you committed to or trying to find a way to get out of it. So save yourself the drama. We are all adults here. Decide what you don't want to do and then think of a kind way to turn it down when it's offered to you. Practice that answer and have it ready to go when you need it. So there you have it. These are some things I have gotten better at this year. And my life feels much simpler because of that. I hope that you can apply some of these things to your life, or that at the very least, they will inspire you to do your own simplification. Please share your tips in the comments. I'd love to hear what you've done to simplify your life. In the meantime, take really good care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.